how it works. Okay, edit. Hold on a second. Okay, we're going live. I think we're live right now. Oh my gosh, this is my first time doing this. I've never streamed to multiple places anymore. We're live. I think we're live. We're going live. Okay, perfect. Anyway, I'm very excited to have Jocelyn Kopac here. I was introduced to her sort of like not randomly, but through a friend of a friend who mentioned that you were doing a live stream with another coach. And I wanted to bring you in here today to talk a little bit about how we can be allies with the causes that we're passionate about, especially in light of all that's been happening in the last couple of weeks with, the death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, because I know the jewelry industry in general is an interesting industry because really like the foundations of many of the core of what this does is a lot of times jewelry companies are passed down through generations. And I know with this new generation of independent jewelry designers and makers that we serve, we do have a very diverse audience from all types of races and backgrounds and stuff like that. And I know that a lot of times people are concerned about what to do or what to say or how they should be showing up. And I know right now, a lot of people feel like they're either not doing enough, they don't know what to do, or they feel like maybe they're saying the wrong thing and it's being offensive. And so I wanted to have you on here just so we could have a candid conversation. You're going to start this by leading a little bit of a training, and then we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. So I would love to know, before I introduce Jocelyn, who's here. So you can give me a little shout out in the comments. For most of us, since we're streaming this through a company called StreamYard, I won't be able to see your name. So we're going to be, in most cases, so we're just going to be answering questions at the end. We're going to be curating the questions in a document so that we have them all so that Jocelyn can answer them. So if you have questions as you're going, please feel free to ask a question. And I would love for you guys to just tell us where your name and where you're calling in from, if you feel comfortable for that, in the comments, and let us know what your big questions are concerning everything that's going on in the world right now. Because we really want to have a candid conversation about race in the jewelry industry and how we can kind of all move forward as a community instead of having it be splinters of a bigger group. So Jocelyn, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I'm going to hand this over to you. I'm going to introduce you really first because I want to give you a little bit of where you're from. Jocelyn's a serial entrepreneur, and she is in the online service-based space and has been talking about and training on inclusion and diversity since 2017. She started hashtag Stand in Your Bias to connect business owners and organizational leaders to the resources that they need to help their businesses become diverse and inclusive. So once again, Jocelyn, thanks for being here. I know that people have a lot of questions, and I want to just hand this over to you now so that you can kind of take the floor.
Perfect. Got to get a drink there, wet the whistle, really be prepared. So like she said, my name is Jocelyn Kopac. I am a serial entrepreneur. I absolutely love growing and making businesses flourish. And I'm so excited to be here talking with you today. I actually saw a comment come through that somebody's from Wisconsin. Shouting out to you because I'm in Wisconsin as well. So just a few housekeeping notes. I know Tracy went over them, but please post all of your questions in the comments. My VA Ashton, quick shout out to her because she's amazing, is collecting them all so I can be sure to answer them at the end during the Q&A. I figure the Q&A is always the longest part of this, but I'm going to start with some just basic education so you guys can have a basic understanding and make sure we're all on a base plane. What I expect out of all of you, especially in the comment section, is no absolutes. If I see the word all or something like that, you are using an absolute and you're not there to learn and grow. So no absolutes at all. I will call you out on that. No hate speech. I think that's probably pretty normal at this point, but I feel the need to sometimes say it. Remembering that there's two sides to every pancake. Your view may be your view, but it may be somebody else's opposite view. So don't feel personally attacked. Take the criticism. Do not defend yourself and grow if you are one of those people. So That's what I expect out of all of you in the comments, so just keep that in mind. And then lastly, like I said before, I am in Wisconsin. I am half black, half white. I was raised in an all-white family, so I do not speak for all black people or all people of color, but I do seek to educate you from a place of love and understanding and education, because I realize that you need to educate yourself as a business owner, as a leader, in order for you to help your organization, your business, your brand move and stand up for what you believe in when it comes to social justice stuff. So those are my housekeeping notes. And again, I'm going to repeat it. Put your questions in the comments because I will literally answer every single one of them. Okay. So when I first start these kind of talks, I always like to make sure we have a base plane that we're all kind of working from. And the reason being is because words are power. And if you don't have the word for what you're trying to say or talk about or whatever, then you probably aren't going to get your points across. So I'm going to go over some that I've seen a lot of talk about in the online space. And especially as a business owner, you really need to know what these mean so you can either not do them or call them out when you see them. So the first term that a lot of people find confusing is white privilege. It's going around a lot. It's used correctly and incorrectly equally. And white privilege is literally the societal advantage that comes with being the norm in a society. So obviously I'm in America. So the norm in America is to be white. That is just the norm. So a good way to think of it is if you're an American, when I say dude or man, you probably already think of them as a white person in your mind, right? You already kind of picture them as a white person. When you say president, Obama is outside of the norm because he was black, or is black, I should say, right? So those are a couple examples that you can kind of think about when you think of white privilege. And it's really the worldview shift that we're all kind of working towards is just because you're the norm doesn't mean that has to be the norm, okay? So that's white privilege. The next term that I see used all the time, and I don't think people really truly understand, is systematic racism. And that literally, it just boils down to just a couple things. It's when everyday decisions that people are making, black, person of color, white, it doesn't matter, but everyday decisions made by people who may not even think of themselves as racist, but because they have these glasses on of the norm is, it creates a racist type situation. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. When I say racist, I don't necessarily mean it in a really, really negative connotation. I mean it in the sense that you are putting on these glasses of these are the norm in society. And so I assume everybody fits that. And so when I make decisions, I assume everyone fits that. And then your decisions come across kind of offensive or rude or not helpful to certain type of people, right? So think about that too, is that's what systematic racism is, because it's literally in every level of our society, because the norm is being white, is having a white worldview. My favorite term that I've seen come up 1,010,000 times over the last few weeks as people are trying to educate each other and try to make sense of everything is white fragility. I've seen a lot of really bad white fragility over the last few weeks, especially. And I want you to understand what that means. Because if somebody called you out for being, for perpetrating some white fragility, don't feel really, really bad. But it really means when you can't see yourself as perpetrating white supremacy or the white norm, because you've been conditioned to believe that the way you see the world is the way that everybody else sees the world. And when that worldview starts to break, you just can't even believe that it's true, right? Because your worldview is literally how you perceive the world, right? I perceive the world in a certain way. And so when new information hits me, you have to be cognizant and emotionally mature enough to take that information and utilize it to your benefit and not defend yourself. And when you start defending yourself for the way you stand, you're not actually listening to the information that's being provided. And so that's really what white fragility means is we're trying to decentralize the white norm, which is oppressive to people of color and Black people because they are not the norm. And because it's seen as normal to a white person, and non-white people are seen as other, that's where that shift has to happen. So when somebody says, oh, you're being the definition of white fragility, don't take it as a negative thing. Take it as a learning and growing thing, okay? Couple more terms. Tone or colorblind, okay? When someone says, for example, I've seen a bunch of graphics on this, all lives matter, not just Black lives, or why are we saying Black lives when all lives matter? Something along those lines. Or I don't see color, everybody is the same. The problem is when you say you don't see color, really what you're saying is you don't see the person for the person they are. You're seeing the person for what you want them to be, because the way you view the world is your view, and it's totally normal and totally fine, but you are literally putting on blinders, okay? So when somebody says you're being colorblind, you're literally missing pieces of what that person is because you are not seeing them as the person that they are, okay? So keep that in mind. That's not helpful language. And it can kind of confuse the conversation. And the last few, the big ones, like racism. Racism, yes. You can totally be racist if you have Black friends, person of color as a spouse, children that are, have melanin in their skin, right? You can totally still be racist, right? 100%. Actually, those are some of the most racist people I've ever talked to, because they literally have blinders on where they think that they're totally fine. And what racism is, especially for us as business owners and us as we're trying to lead teams, is unchecked biases in positions of power. That's literally what it comes down to. Because when you can't see that you have a problem and you have power to make decisions and changes, you're going to make decisions and changes that aren't necessarily helpful to everybody and inclusive. And when I talk about bias, it's the natural human response. We all want to put things in boxes, right? We all kind of want this over here and this over here, and you fit here, right? And that's a completely normal, natural response. Everybody has biases, right? For example, coffee over tea, juice over water, the type of car you drive, the type of person you're attracted to, all of those are biases, and they're not bad. But when they become the only way that you create decisions and make decisions, that's where you can start seeing racist tendencies, because if you leave your biases unchecked, you aren't working with people, okay? Another term I see a lot is POC or BIPOC. If you don't know what that means, BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, and people of color. POC literally just means person of color, which doesn't necessarily mean Black. It can mean a whole variety of people that are not white, okay? So when you see POC, that's what it means. And if you mean Black, say Black. If you mean Native American, say Native American. If you mean Hispanic, say Hispanic or Latina, right? That's what you should be using if you are speaking to a very specific race or ethnicity of people, not just people of color. Because what happens is you marginalize the people that don't quite fit in the narrative that you're about to say. Okay, so when you see that, just remember, people of color does not necessarily mean Black. It means the whole spectrum of brown, so and other colors. So keep that in mind when you're talking. And the last thing, and this is one that I feel like I need to touch on even more, because over the last few days, there's been a video by Candace Owens. She's a Black woman, and she's been talking about all of the Black Lives Matter movement, George Floyd, the whole nine, okay? And this last term really, really, really applies to her. And it applies to me as well. It applies to a lot of Black people. And the term is passing. And this is something that you do as a Black person or a person of color when you assimilate yourself into the norm culture, which is white culture here in America. And you assimilate to the point that your friends, your family, whoever, have a hard time believing that you come from a different heritage or a different ethnicity or a different race. So I've been seeing a lot of this Candace Owens video, and she passes extremely well, right? Because she's able to talk to white people in a way that most Black people can't, right? And she speaks to their insecurities and their biases to the point where they feel like she's speaking for all Black people, which is not the case. Each person is different. Each person has their own biases. Each person wants different things, sees different things, that thing. So when you see somebody, a person of color, a Black person, whatever, really assimilating into white culture, it's called passing. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because in order to succeed, you do have to assimilate into some norms, right? Like wearing clothes when you leave the house. But at the same time, that's where some of that stuff comes in, is where you start giving up on some of your own values to fit into the norm. Okay? So that's passing. So those are all of the terms. Feel free, that I'm going to cover at least during this topic, feel free to put any of your questions when it comes to those terms, or maybe some other terms that you've seen, in the comments, because I'm going to continue to talk, but I'll come back to those questions at the end, okay? Okay, that was weird. It was like reset. So how can you understand the feeling, right? And any business owner that is worth their weight in gold, any business owner that knows how to market their product well, is really, really good at putting themselves in the shoes of their consumer, or the shoes of whoever's going to buy their stuff, right? So how can you understand this feeling that Black Americans, people of color, are feeling in America right now, today? Okay. How can you understand this feeling? So I've got a few examples, and I like to teach off of analogies and examples. So follow me here. If you're a woman, I can almost guarantee you that at some point somebody told you that you need to either walk to your car with another person, or you need to have your keys in between your fingers when you walk to the car in the dark, or you need to make sure you have a flashlight out so you're lighting up the area. Make sure you don't park too far from wherever you're going if you're going to be leaving when it's dark, so you can get to your car quickly. Lock the doors as soon as you get into your car. Things like that. I know as a woman, people have told you this. Right? And so imagine you're leaving a party, right? And you parked in the parking garage, and so you have to walk to your car, and it's dark outside, and you get this feeling that somebody's following you. And so you look behind you, and there's this guy following you. And as a woman, that's always a little bit scary. And so then you walk a little bit faster, and the guy walks a little bit faster, and you worry and you feel anxious. Am I going to make it to my car on time? Am I going to need to do this? Am I going to need to do that? Right? So you worry, am I going to be able to unlock my car before he gets to me? Am I going to be able to lock my car before he gets to me, right? That feeling of worry and anxiety of something that you cannot control, and you just really, really, really badly want to get yourself out of that situation, okay? So that is a feeling that a lot of Black Americans feel today, right now. So just to kind of help put this into perspective of why some of the stuff is happening the way it's happening, and why some of the people are talking the way they're talking, right? If you feel anxious and worried and unsafe, and like you literally can't get yourself out of a situation fast enough, things happen. Or if you say things, you do things that normally you maybe wouldn't even do. The other thing, if you're a woman, something that you can totally feel like in the core of your being is sexism. We have all been passed over for a man. We have all been told we couldn't do a job because of. We have all seen when somebody gets a job, but they don't get promoted because they're worried that they just got married, they're going to have a baby soon, right? We've all seen that. And that anger that comes with it, because you know you're good enough. You know you do the job well. You know you should have gotten that promotion or that position, but you didn't. And the only reason you can understand why is because you are a woman, okay? That happens a lot. If you can still hear me. Okay. That happens a lot, and there is...
For a minute. I think you're back, though. Here we go.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. It keeps doing little circles things. You do it, and I do it. So, okay. But that feeling of you can't change something because you are a woman, like there's nothing you can do about that. We can't change anything because we are brown, right? And that feeling of that's the only reason you didn't get what you were trying to do. Okay, so that feeling of like anger because you can't change it, but yet it's still happening to you. And the last one that is a really good way to kind of understand this feeling, because I know a lot of business owners have been saying, I don't even understand. Like they do a post and they're like, I don't understand what you're going through. But you can have sympathy because you probably have been through some stuff that is close. Not the same, but close. You can't necessarily have empathy because you've never been through it, but you definitely can have sympathy. The last one is if you've ever been through some sort of major trauma, right? Traumatic childbirth, assault, car crash, whatever, right? And all of those feelings and emotions that come afterward and have to come with that healing, that is another way to think of it, right? And it's traumatic when you can watch a video of someone that could be your brother or son or uncle or friend or boyfriend or husband literally die, right? That's traumatic. And trauma happens to everyone. And I'm not saying it's just a black trauma. It's a white trauma too. So if you watch that video, you know what I'm talking about. It's traumatic. And that those feelings that come up afterward, right? Whatever it is, the PTSD, there we go. I'm seeing it in the comments, right? That how you're going to work through it is different for every person, but those feelings are still the same. Those feelings are still there. And you have to realize that, right? So those are the three ways that if you are not Black, you can understand somewhat what the Black community and people of color are going through right now in America, right? So as a business owner, keep that in mind as you're going through and revamping how you're doing things or changing or updating or however you're responding, right? Keep that kind of stuff in mind, right? Because think of it this way. If you had a trauma and someone came and everyone has had this happen. For example, someone passes away and you have the funeral and literally every single person says, how are you holding up? How are you doing? Right? Like if you ever have had to deal with that, you're like, by the time the third person asks you, you're like, oh my Lord, leave me alone, right? You just want people to go away, right? That's what the Black community is feeling, because then on top of all of the trauma that we're facing because of that, we have people that are white or even just don't really know what's going on, asking, how are you holding up? What can I do to help? Can you help me with this? What do you think about this? Right? And it's way a lot. It's way a lot. So keep that in mind as you're working with your team and everything, because that there is a trauma response there. Okay, so now that you can kind of understand the feeling, you can see across all platforms that Black people are asking for help. Black people of color in this nation are asking for help. And how, as a business owner or as a person even, can you really truly be an ally, really truly be anti-racist? How can you make that a thing? And I mean, I think I've probably gotten 50 emails about this. I'm not even lying to you. People that I've never talked to, and they're like, how do I deal with this? And I'm like, girl, this is the best possible response I can come up with. Black people are really only asking different ways of asking, but they're really only asking for 4 specific things. 4 things. That's it. Okay. And they're asking it of everybody, the Black community, people of color, our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, white people, everybody. But as a business owner, you specifically have the chance to affect these 4 things. The first thing is commitment. Commitment to being better, commitment to education. Okay. You have to be committed in order for anything to work. It's just flat how it is, right? You're committed to your business. You work every day on your business. You want your business to grow, right? So you're committed to your business. Keep that in mind. That's the first thing. The second thing is growth, right? You're committed to education. You're going to do the education, but then utilizing what you're learning, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, the feedback you're getting, and growing yourself so that you can take it to the next level, right? So you you are doing the next best thing, okay? Commitment and growth. The next thing is stamina. Okay, stamina. You don't do your business for 3 days and then 4 days out of the week not do anything. I can almost guarantee you, if you want your business to do well, to grow, etc. So we're asking for stamina. Every time something horrific like what happened to George Floyd happens, we get a big public outcry for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it all just dies down. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I noticed this today while I was on Facebook this morning already. Stuff is starting to die down. People are starting to post other things. People are starting to ignore or whatever, right? So we're asking for stamina. Not saying you have to post about Black Lives Matter or I'm with you or things like that, but you have to have stamina in order to do the last thing, affect change. We want to see change, and you should too. You should too, because when your kids ask you in 20 years, Mom, Dad, what did you do after George Floyd died? And they learn about it in school, let's say, and you can't say you did anything, it's going to really suck, right? So we're asking for commitment, growth, stamina, and change, okay? And change comes from entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the change makers of the world. We are the revolutionaries, right? We come up with the stuff that the world has never seen before. We come up with ways to do things better. We come up with ways to manage and lead better, right? So we are the changers. We are the changers, but we have to have the commitment, the growth, and the stamina to really affect that change. Okay? Okay, so with that, that is what I'm asking for. So what can you do right now as you're seeing all kinds of stuff happen across all of, see, this is what happens when I leave Facebook open, right? People are blowing me up already. Okay, calm down.
Turn Messenger off or something, because it'll just ding.
Yeah, we're on Chrome with StreamYard, so Chrome is still loud, so I can hear you guys. Okay, anyway, so this is what I mean. Do you hear all those things? Yeah, that's somebody asking me a question. I can almost guarantee you it's someone that watched a video I did 2 days ago. Can almost guarantee. Better not be any of you, because you're putting your questions in the comments. Okay. So how is you as a business owner, how can you work with your audience, work with your team, and really start to affect this change, create this commitment, show that you have stamina and you're ready to grow as a business owner, as a team, as a brand, as an organization, whatever you call yourself? How can you do this? Well, first thing is get rid of some of these unhelpful phrases, right? There are a bunch, in my opinion, of unhelpful phrases that I see people posting, especially as business owners, because they want to keep everybody as clients. Well, here's some of them. The first one, and the one I see over and over and over again, is I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. Meaning I'm damned if I talk about race and social injustice and Black Lives Matter and all of the stuff that's going on, and I'm damned if I do, because I'm going to get people that hate me one way and people that hate me the other way. Well, here's my question to that. First of all, do you really want people that are okay with racism? Because there really isn't an argument there, right? Are you okay with it, or you aren't okay with it, right? Okay, which one is it? Okay, so if you're okay with it, then run your business that way. But if you're not okay with it, then the answer becomes super clear that, well, you're going to be damned if you do, because that's just how it works, okay? The other thing I want to implore that all of you realize is this whole thing is not about approval, diversity, inclusion, equity. Growing your business in the best way possible so that everyone feels like they're heard is not about approval. It's about what you feel is correct and what you feel is morally right. So let's erase this language of I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. You don't stop from putting out a new product because you're worried that the audience you currently have is not going to like it. You're like, oh, well, I'll just build another audience for this specific kind of product, right? So think of it that way. It's not about approval. It's about how you want to affect the change in your business, in your teams, with your audience, okay? The second unhelpful phrase that we all need to eliminate from our vocabulary is, I don't see color. I touched on this earlier when we were talking about the different terms, the colorblind term, right? The best analogy I have for this, and everyone's seen it, either, if they have kids, they have nieces and nephews, they grew up next to kids, their older siblings, movies, all of it, right? We've all seen it. The kid that takes a Sharpie to the back of the bathroom door and colors on it, and then the parent pulls the kid aside and is like, what is this? And the kid's like, I don't know. I don't see anything wrong with it. Right? And you have to explain as the parent or the guardian, the caretaker, whatever, that, hey, you can't be writing on walls, right? You're creating a whole bunch of work for me, okay? So when somebody says, I don't see color, I think of it as the little kid that wrote on a wall but doesn't want to own up to it, right? Because when you say that, it shows an unwillingness to see a problem. Right? Because, and it's not even necessarily a problem. Sometimes it's really pretty. Like, I think my skin tone is beautifully caramel, right? But, right, you're unwilling to see that it could even create a problem, okay? So just keep that in mind when you see the I don't see color. It shows that somebody is not emotionally there yet to take in all of the trauma that's going to come with realizing there is an issue, okay? So keep that in mind when somebody says, I don't see color. The next one I hate seeing. Hate it. And I'm a big proponent of not talking about politics in your business. But the thing is talking about race is not talking about politics. And talking about race does not bring disunity. Right? I see that all the time. We shouldn't talk about that in here. This is a business place. This is a business group. We shouldn't, no politics, no race, no religion. Right? Well, the problem is with that is if you are not talking about race, right? There's plenty of Christian business owners that talk about the Bible and Christ and God and Jesus all the time, right? And their businesses thrive just fine, right? So if you're not talking about race, what that means is, again, you're unwilling to see a problem, which goes back. I'm connecting again. I don't know.
You froze for just a minute. You froze for just a minute. You said,
okay, all right, I'll go back.
About the Bible, like Christian business owners whose foundation is that they're Christianity. I'm going to have a question about that later, so I'm going to type it in the comments. And I think.
Okay, yeah. So some people use that as the basis of their business, right? And their businesses still thrive and grow. And religion is one of the off-topic topics, right? Like we don't talk about that here, right? So when I see that talking about race brings disunity or talking about race means we're talking about politics, that's not the case. That is not the case because, and the reason is, no one can help what race they're born into. Period. They can't help themselves. Like, it's just what they are. It's who they are, right? So by not talking about it, what you're actually going to do is create a divide, right? And a divide of, we can't even have this conversation. We can't bring up we're having a problem. We can't bring up that maybe you did something wrong. We can't even bring that up. And I've seen the groups that have talked about it and the groups that haven't. The groups that have, they're like way past it. They're onto like educational stuff, and they're onto all the really good things that come from having a constructive, positive conversation. The groups that refuse to talk about it, they're still going head to head with like hateful, horrible comments. Okay. And I'm in both kinds. I've seen it. And these are groups that are centered around businesses. So which kind of business do you want to have, right? So don't bring the it's not a politics thing. It's a humanity thing. It's a human thing. Okay. Another phrase that I see a lot of business owners using, especially white coaches, is I feel bad for being white, or it's not my fault for being white. First and foremost, I want to talk to everyone that's white. You do not have to feel bad for being white, just like I don't have to feel bad for being brown, just like my cousin doesn't have to feel bad for being white from a different country. It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. You should not feel bad for who you are. What you should feel bad for, if you're using the phrase, it's not my fault I'm white, right? Well, that implies that you're being defensive. And if you're being defensive, that means that somebody's probably trying to tell you something that even if you never agree with it, you maybe should internalize it and realize that that's another worldview that you need to encompass into your business. So, you cannot be genuinely concerned for your brothers and sisters, but have that are people of color and Black, but have more concern for your own ego. That's just not, you're not going to grow an inclusive business this way. It's just not going to happen. My team, right? I own multiple businesses. I think Tracy said at the beginning, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own multiple businesses. It's just part of who I am. And my team for my marketing agency, I did it again. My team from my marketing agency, for example, is 100% grounded in the fact that they can come to me and say, hey, Jocelyn, you're messing this up. Or, hey, we're doing it wrong. We need to do it a different way, right? So when you have your ego above what you're trying to be told, you're not actually going to be able to grow. And especially as a leader of a business, when you're trying to grow a business, it's hugely important. And especially when it comes to this, because what happens is if you have a diverse team, you're going to end up alienating people. And as a business, you're going to end up alienating customers if you cannot have these conversations and cannot take the criticism, okay? The last one is, and this is not necessarily even anything to do with businesses per se, but the Black Lives Matter, or I feel bad about George Floyd, whatever, but, put a nice little big but in there, looting and rioting is wrong, bad, whatever. Okay, so I have a story to tell with this one. And I told it a few times now at this point, but it's a good story. It actually fits in really well right here. Obviously, I'm Black. Got curly hair, and I was out shopping at my favorite store, the dollar store, because I like paying only $1 for things. And this woman walks up to me, and she's white, and I was holding a piece of like cardboard, white cardboard. Great for background pictures for products, okay? You guys will understand that, actually. You'll understand that. Okay, so great for background pictures for small products. And she's like, oh, you're going to the protest. And she used that kind of like, that like slightly sassy tone, which always puts me on edge, because I'm like, if you're gonna outsass a sasser, pick a different sasser, because I'm the best. Right, slightly sassy tone, and I was like, no, and I just moved here. Like, I literally just moved to this town like 5 weeks ago, so I know no one, okay, because Corona, and then that, like, I know no one. And I was like, no, I didn't know there was one going on. She's like, yeah, they're in front of the post office, and does like this little eye rolly thing. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go check it out. Thanks. And like, I start walking away down the aisle, and she turns to another white woman that was sitting in the aisle, or standing in the aisle waiting, to pick out whatever she's picking. We're in craft aisle. It's a good aisle. And she's like, yeah, I was really torn up about the looting that happened in our Capitol. And I was like, ugh, okay. And I kept walking, like I ignored it. She's like, I literally cried for those business owners. And I had to stop myself, because I was like, Jocelyn, you're here to have a good time shopping at the dollar store, not to, educate somebody. But what the problem was there is she had more concern over property than somebody's life. And that's really what it came down to, is she could not see the difference of, this is so bad that we need a change now. What she saw was, this is so bad because it's affecting people's businesses. Okay. So if you have used that language, first of all, anything before a but is negated. Like, you can just like put a line right through it. It didn't even happen, right? Because if you're putting a but, that means that you kind of believe it, but really, the important part is back here, right? Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is, stop and think about why you are really mad about the looting and the rioting. There's a really good video by Trevor Noah, and he talks about the social contract that we all have to live by. And this is really important for businesses as well, because we have contracts in between us and our clients. They expect a certain level of something, and we are supposed to be giving them a certain level of something as business owners, right? So he talks about the social contract between each one of us as citizens, right? And as citizens, we all have this unspoken, like, no one takes like at 18 is like, okay, I'm gonna uphold this social contract. Like, it's unspoken, okay? It's unspoken that, hey, we're not gonna kill each other, we're not gonna steal each other's stuff, we are, not gonna purposely hurt each other, we are going to pay our taxes, right? Okay, so that's our contract. That's like socially how we all interact with each other. But and think back to trauma responses, what a lot of Black people are saying is, hey, I'm upholding my end of the social contract for the most part, right? I'm upholding, but what happens is you guys aren't holding up your own. Like, and so now I'm mad, right? So, and that's part of the social contract is we're not going to break stuff. We're not going to loot you, right? So think about it that way. The other thing I want to let you know is in marketing, I don't know if you've ever seen anything about like the psychology of marketing or the psychology of copywriting or psychology of color, right? Those are all really, really, really true big things, okay? And they're really important for how you run your business. Side note, should look them up. But they're also important on how the media, as in like CNBC, CNN, Fox News, all of them, talk about situations, right? Because they're trying to get their ratings up, always, right? And so as I've been noticing over the last few weeks, they're not pairing together, but they're pairing together certain situations. For example, George Floyd is killed by a white police officer, Black George Floyd killed by white police officer, whatever, right? And then the next sentence, even though it's not paired together, they're paired together, is looting and rioting ensues, right? That's not saying that it's the same thing, but they're paired together. So that's the psychology of words. So when you look at that, I just challenge you to always, again, educate yourself about it, because you're going to find that even though the words pair together, they're not the same. They're not the same thing. Especially when it comes to looting and rioting, people are literally traveling city to city just to smash some stuff up. Just saying. Just saying. So keep that in mind as you start to see things come through the news. And even as a business owner, when it comes to your marketing, it can help or hinder you, right? So keep that in mind when you think about that kind of stuff. That's my soapbox there. So, okay, so those are the phrases that I really don't want to see business owners using anymore, because they're really not that helpful. They're actually kind of harming you. And it's not forming a culture with your team, your audience, and your business that if you are ready to be a committed ally, a committed anti-racist that you're gonna want to have. Yeah, that reminds me. Put your comments below. If you have phrases that you need responses to, I'm the queen at formulating good ass responses. So if you've seen phrases where you're like, this is just downright wrong, but I don't know how to deal with it, or I don't know how to come from a place of love, education, and respect to educate this person, put them in the comments. I love doing that. Okay, so how do you come from a place of love and education with your team, your audience, business, the whole nine? How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, it starts with you. Okay. And this is kind of gets into the action plan of the main questions that I've seen kind of come through of like, how can I do better? Right. It kind of starts with you. And the reason it starts with you is because change happens internally before it can happen externally, right? We go over mindset, we go over imposter syndrome, we go over all this stuff when it comes to building a successful, profitable business. This is the same difference, okay? So what I challenge you is to emancipate yourself from your current worldview and biases to grow with and become a true anti-racist freedom ally, right? And when that happens, you're going to see a shift in your culture of your business. You're going to see a shift of your culture in your audience, and you're going to see a difference. And so that is really what I'm challenging you to do. So especially because this whole group of people knows a little bit more about products than the average Joe. I've got a few people that I want to talk about specifically, because if you have a space to learn and flourish, then you will learn and flourish, because someone is giving you that space. They're including you. They're giving you the education you need so that you can become the best you possibly can, right? If you get shut down in that space, the chances that you come back and continue to grow and continue to flourish decrease drastically, right? So think of it that way when I tell you about these people. And if these people were in your audience right now, would you be shutting them down, or would you be giving them a space to flourish? Okay. First person, Charles Richard Drew. He was a doctor in DC in 1942, and he invented the method for preserving human blood. AKA, if you've ever gotten blood in your entire life, if you know anybody that has gotten blood in your entire life, that is the man. That is the man that made it possible, and he's a black man. So think about it that way. If you would not have given him the space, would he have still done it? Okay. Another person I want to bring up is Marie von Britten Brown. She invented the first home security system. And the reason I want to bring that up is twofold. One, cool ass woman entrepreneur that came up with something really interesting and something we use still to this day. And the reason she came up with it is because police officers in New York do not respond quickly depending on the neighborhood you live in. And she needed something to help keep people out of her house as a woman. So she invented a home security system that wasn't just like a dog. So if you have a home security system, one, you can thank her, and two, realize why she created it. And someone gave her the space to talk about it and come up and formulate an idea in a product that she could use. Okay. The next one, Dr. Lonnie Johnson. All of us have used a water gun. All of us. I don't even care. I think all of us have. And if you haven't, you need to go to the dollar store or Walmart right now and go get yourself a water gun. It's the best time. Okay. Especially in the summer. But that is the person that actually invented the Super Soaker water gun. Right? The little squirt, and you get water on you. That's the person who invented it, right? So you wouldn't have water guns unless it was for this black guy, okay? And the last one is Marion Rogers Croak. She holds over 135 patents. 135 patents. Like I don't even think I could come up with 135 ideas of like new patentable. I don't even know. But the patents are in voice over internet protocol, which is VoIP technology. So if you use Google Voice to call people, the video we're on right now, Skype, Google Hangouts, Zoom, anything, yeah, that all uses VoIP, voice over internet protocol. And she's the one that made that possible for you, a black woman. Okay, so keep that in mind as you kind of get discouraged over time, and it helps you kind of keep your stamina up of, hey, I am building a space for these people to have a conversation, because those conversations turn into things that affect literally the whole of humanity. Okay. So now that you kind of have a little bit of warm, fuzzy feelings of things that can happen, if you do this correctly, let's get into what you can actually do as a business owner. Okay. Now's the time to start like really dropping your questions, because I've got like 10 steps that you can do, and then I'm going to answer all of the questions. Okay. So the first thing, again, emancipate yourself, check your bias, educate yourself, do that hard internal work. It sucks. I'm going to let you know it totally sucks. Okay. Because it feels uncomfortable, and that feeling of discomfort makes us want to back away and not do it. But it's something you have to do. And I don't care what you're even educating yourself on, right? If you're educating yourself on leadership techniques, it's going to suck, because you're going to realize you were a really bad leader, right? So it's the same thing. You need to educate yourself in order to be better. Okay. And part of that education is checking your biases. Okay. Checking your biases for bad things that have happened, good things that have happened, things that you were taught, right? You're going to find that there's a lot more there than you even think. Okay. The second thing, as a business owner, is call yourself out. I think part of the reason I have such a good culture in my team is I'm like, hey guys, I'm swamped. I'm doing a really bad job. And I call myself out for not doing the work, not having the time management skills, not whatever it is. I call myself out so that my team feels safe to then call themselves out and be like, Jocelyn, hey, I can't do this. I can't get this. I need the time off, whatever, right? So especially when it comes to inclusion, diversity, being an ally, being an anti-racist, calling yourself out is going to be the most effective thing you do in your business, right? I have seen really good calling myself out posts, and I've seen some really self-serving ones come from a place of vulnerability, right? If you feel defensive, do some internal work instead of replying with an excuse, right? Because we've all seen it. We've all seen racism. We've all seen just really stupid stuff that goes down. We've all seen it. And we need to be able to call ourselves out for standing and watching it happen, but also calling ourselves out like, hey, we're going to do this education. We're going to have the commitment and the growth to make sure we can affect the change. Okay. And then the next few things are for you and your team. Okay. Come up with an action plan for education. I know a few times Ashton has put in the comments, stingithinyourbias.com. That is my website. And I actually have a freebie on a 30-day action plan for education that you can follow, or you can follow and your team can follow at the same time. So you can have conversations to help build a better culture in your business. Okay. So what you're going to read, what you're going to listen to, what you're going to consume over the next 30 days to educate yourself on social justice stuff, and how you can update your worldview on these topics, right? Because even me, as I'm doing more education so I can bring you more education, literally I went to the library and I rented 22 books yesterday. Not even joking you. Okay. So as I'm finding that my worldview is shifting, and I'm going, oh man, yeah, I can't say that works. Or, oh man, yeah, I thought that was a thing, but I guess I was wrong. Right. So realize you're going to be updating your worldview and be open to that. And invite the people around you to learn, discuss, and listen as well, right? Especially if you've got a team, but you can invite your audience to do that as well if that's something that, you talk about as an audience. Once you're done with that 30-day sprint of education, obviously you're going to want a more long elongated plan for your business, right? 4 or 6 months of what you're going to educate yourself on over the next 4 to 6 months, how you're going to show up in your business in the next 4 to 6 months. And the reason this is so important is because if you do this wrong, it's a marketing and PR nightmare. We have all seen it online in the last few weeks. Businesses being torn down because they're doing it wrong. Okay. And I don't want you guys to do it wrong. I want you to spend the time. I want you to have a plan, right? So do that education and then create a 4 to 6 month action plan of how you are actually going to enact the change, that things that updated your own worldview, right? I didn't come up with the no absolutes. And I don't know how many people have messaged me at this point saying, oh, that no absolutes changed how I looked at things. It was amazing, right? Whatever. Okay. I didn't come up with that. I was told that myself. And I think my third big girl job is, hey, you keep using all these clients are, or hey, all of us need to do. No. Just because all needs to do does not mean that all need to do, right? Some of it is only just a certain number of people. Okay. So that absolutes thing was not a me thing. But I use it now in training to educate people. So keep that in mind, that your education and how you shifted your worldview can actually affect other people. Okay, so that action plan is going to be so important. And remember, it's enacting change that you can afford, right? It's not, these big giant, I'm going to give a $10,000 grant. If you can't afford a $10,000 grant, don't give a $10,000 grant. That's not what we're talking about. Enact the change you can afford time-wise and monetarily, and emotionally and mental space as well, right? So I only do, at this point, I'm getting a slew of people that want me to come do DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, right? DEI trainings. And I'm saying, hey, I'm booked out for weeks because I can only do 2 a week in order to have the emotional and mental space to do a good job educating from a place of love. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're setting up your plan. So what are some things you can put into your plan? I got a list of that too. First and foremost, sharing your personal story or the personal stories of people that work for you or part of your audience, however you want to collect those are up to you, but how you've seen and or experienced and or perpetrated racist stuff. Okay, let people know it's a real thing and it's affecting you. Okay, because you as a business owner, it makes a world of difference. It just makes a world of difference. Okay, because if your sister came and said, hey, this guy was really creepy, it's going to affect you differently than if you saw online a story about a guy being creepy, right? So think of that in that frame of sense, is you can affect the people in your sphere of influence a lot better than I can, because they don't know me, right? I'm kind of fun, but they don't know me, okay? And if they know you, they're going to listen to that story a little differently, okay? Second thing is obviously join the Stand in Your Bias movement. Anytime that you post something about diversity or inclusion or how you as a company are doing better, things you're educating yourself on, use the hashtag Stand in Your Bias. We'll always give you a shout out because we absolutely love working with businesses that are literally standing in their bias and taking that inclusion and diversity to the next level with the stamina and the change that they're ready to enact. Okay, so keep that in mind. Another thing you can do is send out an email to your audience, to your clients, to everybody that you have on your email list. If you think about it, when COVID hit, we got emails from like people we didn't even know had our email. Like at least I did. People that I never coming to your company. I don't even know how you got my email. I maybe looked at a freebie from you or looked at your application at one point, whatever, right? I got emails from everybody. I know you guys did too. So think about it that way. That was a super big thing that affected the world, right? And biases and unchecked biases paired with low emotional IQs to be able to learn and grow. Yeah, that'll be a big difference. If you send out that email, you're going to be making a stance. And I just want to put this out there. And this is not necessarily the same with all ethnic cultures, but Black people, when you do really well for one Black person, we all know about it. We all know about it. And we come to you as business, guaranteed. If you do bad or wrong by one Black person, we all come for you. And we may not come from a place of love and education. Some people come from a place of anger and hurt, which not good for a business. So keep that in mind. Okay. Another thing you can do, again, come from a place where you can actually afford the change you're trying to enact, is do a grant or a giveaway specifically to help your Black audience, right? I know Tracy has been doing a grant. I think I saw her doing a grant. I'll let her do that. But I think I saw her
a little bit later.
Okay, cool. Yep. So, she's enacting change from a place where she can afford it and the time and the space is there that she can do that, right? Not everybody can do that, but think about it as something you do as your audience grows bigger. Another thing you can do is start conversations in your groups. If you have a Facebook group or a Slack channel, whatever, with your audience or your clients or people that have bought things from you, you can create that open conversation, right? Feel free to steal my rules. If you don't remember, the rules are at the beginning of this live. But basically, no absolutes is my biggest one. Like, they never help. Okay. And the sixth thing you can add to your 4 to 6 month plan roadmap of how you're going to start to enact change. And really, once you start doing it, it's going to become part of your business culture, which then your stamina just does it yourself, right? It's like getting up early in the morning. Once you get into the habit, you start doing it a lot. Okay. The last one is call out bad reactions that you've seen from people in your team or in your let's say you're in a business group, right? Call out the bad reactions you're seeing, and using the movement to create drama. This is not the place to create drama. This is the place to create change. So if you're calling someone out, call them out from a place of love and education. Don't cuss them out. It's never going to help. But make sure you're calling them out so you give them a chance to educate themselves and for them to be able to create that change and education in their own business. So I hope you've been putting all the questions in, because those are my 6 tips of what you can put into your 4 to 6 month plan so that you can really start that engine and start going in your business and creating a change. So now I'm going to move on to questions. So if you have questions, throw them in the comments now, because I'm going to start answering.
Okay. Jocelyn, I would love to feed you questions because I want to have like a little bit of a commentary here and talk back and forth. First and foremost, I just found out, like, I've seen a bunch of the comments coming through, like, I feel like I look like I'm white, but I'm actually Latina, or I look like I'm white, but I'm actually Mexican, or Puerto Rican or Mexican or whatever, another thing. And I just found out today that one of our team members is actually a Latina. And I didn't know, because I can't ask her what culture is. But I also, quite honestly, Quay, I love you. I thought you were Native American just because your name kind of sounds that. And I've been talking with a lot of people.
Eastern European.
What'd you say?
Yeah, Eastern European. That's my name. Kopac is Eastern European. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So, and then also I was talking with our sales consultant, and one time, I'm good friends with her, and we've been friends for, I met her about 1.5 years ago at a business networking event. I hired her as a sales consultant. She's been working with us on and off for the last 1.5 years. And I think about 6 months in, I said to her, she said something about being Black. And I was like, Andra, I didn't even know you were Black. I couldn't tell, because I thought, I thought she was Middle Eastern, because she was adopted. She's from Africa, from Asia, I think. or somewhere in there, and which is really close to the Middle East. Like she looked middle, I thought she was Middle East, but I don't really ask people. So my question to you to get this started is there's this huge conversation, like if you don't know, how do you know? Or like, how do you create diversity when you like literally don't know? Because we have, sorry, there's a little bit of noise back there because my cleaning lady's here, but we have a couple of Filipino team members. We have a couple of Indian freelancers working for us. I'm about to actually hire a member of our community who's a Black woman to do graphic design for us. We do have like our core team is there are probably like 4 or 5 white people on it. And I just found out today that one of them is Latina. So, you know, one
she's not even white.
I didn't even know. But you know, and this comes to the question. It's like, how do you, number one, how do you create more diversity on your team when you can't really ask the question if someone does have a light color skin or something that can pass as white? How does someone who passes as white share the conversation about what their heritage or culture is? And this is really another question, which you can answer that first part first. But the second part of this is really like, you know, we post job positions all the time, and we do sometimes have people of color applying, but a lot of times we don't. And so how do you kind of overcome that? So I want you to answer that first part of the question.
So I've actually answered this question before, the exact same question.
Oh no, you just froze. Wait, okay, start over. You answered the same question before, the same question, and then right when you got to the good stuff, you froze.
Yeah. Of course I did. Of course. So the first thing is it already shows to your culture that you're able to take in people that are diverse and you don't even know it because it's not even a big deal to you, right? It's just not. Like, it is what it is. So that's the first step as a business owner. And I've been doing a lot of diversity and inclusion training for HR, not for businesses like this. This is like the last few weeks have blown up when it comes to this. So I've got a lot of techniques when it comes to HR. So my first thing that I always challenge people to look at is look at your culture and look at the culture of your managers, if you have managers or leaders or whatever you call them, team leaders, whatever, are presenting, right? I present a very open, chill, you do you, you're going to kill it. I expect what I expect out of you. But I also know, you know, your job culture, right? Which is very open, because if you come from Black culture, it lets you do your thing. If you come from the Philippines, which I do have, it lets you do your thing. If you're Muslim or Hindu or Christian, it lets you do your thing, right? So that's the first thing is really take an in-depth look at what your culture does and how that works, right? I can honestly say everybody on my team, if we all lived in the same town, we probably get together for coffee every morning. Like, we're friends and we have the same worldview. We have the same, maybe not the same level of education on things, but the same worldview of, hey, this is how this works, okay? To the point where one of my girls, she's our sales girl, she messaged me. She's like, so I just watched your video on, and it was one of these type videos, and she's like, you know, it doesn't even surprise me that you said half the stuff you said, like, because we are so open with our worldview. So that would be my first thing. And I challenge you, because it doesn't matter if you're hiring someone of color, if you're hiring a Black person, it doesn't matter if you're hiring that, or if you're hiring somebody that's from the LGBTQ community, or if you're hiring somebody that has been in the military or hasn't worked a corporate job, went to college, didn't, right? All of that creates a diversity that you're going to need to see. One of the best examples I have is I got hired to be an HR trainer and coordinator for a company here in Wisconsin. And after I got in there, I realized they hired me because of, I checked off the affirmative action things. But on the flip side, they hired me without prepping their culture to have somebody diverse. And I don't even mean the Black part, because I don't really act super like stereotypical Black, okay? I pass very well in white societal norms when it comes to socialization. But what I mean is, I was in the Army. I was in the Army for 4 years. So I came out, I mean, I still do, but I came out swearing. I came out making jokes that most corporate America doesn't like, right? I just came out with a very different worldview because of the experiences I had. And they weren't ready for that. They were like, put the whole I'm black aside. They were not ready for that. And so I left. I worked there for like 6 or 8 weeks. And I was like, I'm out. This is not what I'm for. Right. So think about that before you start hiring. And you're going to see that think about that,
You're good. You're good.
Before you start hiring, because you're going to see that there's a shift there. Yeah. And there's a shift there. And then I honestly think it's StreamYard. I don't necessarily think it's my internet because I'm not getting any like weird internet things. Anyway.
You're good.
So think about that. And then when you start posting for jobs, one, it's completely and 100% illegal to only hire people of color or black people, or to say in your post that you're only hiring people of color or black people. It doesn't matter where you live, any first world country, it's illegal. Okay. I've seen a few people post like that. I'm like, girl, that's how you get sued. Okay. So, Okay. First of all, think about that. But second of all, think of where you're posting. If you're posting in a community that's 75% white VAs, of course you're going to get all white applications. Like that's just what you're going to get. So think about where you're posting. So I switch it up, right? I post in communities based off of skill set, not based off of what I'm trying to hire, like as in diversity. So keep that in mind. The other thing is when you start building up this plan and start showing that you are inclusive, that you're doing the work, following, you're committed, your gut stamina, you're growing, you're changing, right? When you start doing that, you're going to find that your audience starts to grow and change a little bit. And your audience tends to be one of the best places to find people to work for you. And if you are committed to a diverse, inclusive audience, you're going to find diverse, inclusive applicants, right? Because those are the people that are watching your company.
I think for us, we have actually, Quay was a member of our community. She was a scholarship winner way back in the day. But our community is people who we're helping them run businesses that are in the jewelry space. So it's not necessarily, we have posted job descriptions in our community. We've gotten several applicants, but I do it more because I feel like they know people, because I want them to focus on growing their business, not being distracted by having another job. Yeah.
The same difference applies, right? I know people that know people.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
When I put up a job, because there's people literally watching my companies to be able to come work for them. Okay. So they're not even part of my normal audience. They're literally watching for when Jocelyn posts the post, hey, position, blah, 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 this is what it is. Shoot me a message, shoot me an email, right? That's literally what they're watching my company for. I have a bunch of people, and I know it's the fact because they apply for every single job I put out. And it doesn't matter where I put it. It doesn't matter where I put it. I can put it in my group. I can put it on my personal page. I can put it on my business page. I can send out an email. I get the same people. So and keep that in mind. And as you build that diverse audience, or diverse, not even diverse audience, but diverse network, you're going to find you're getting more and more diversity in your team. Because if you're friends with a Black business owner and you're like, hey, I really need, and they're like, oh my God, my girlfriend does that, right?
Yeah.
You're probably going to get a little bit more diverse applicants. So keep that in mind. That's where it's a full circle thing, because it is 100% illegal to hire someone based off of their race, ethnicity, sexuality, religion. It's illegal unless you're a church. It's illegal.
Yeah. So okay. I have another
question
for you. So my boyfriend always says that the original meaning of diversity was a difference in opinion or thought, right? And so from what you're saying, like the definition of diversity in the workplace is hiring people from different backgrounds, not necessarily because of the color of their skin, that they're coming from different life situations. So I just wanted to kind of drive that home, that that's the meaning, because like although I think I probably understood that, I think immediately what comes to mind is that you're hiring across different races, which is not necessarily the only thing, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Well, and if you're having an issue, like kind of figuring it out, literally just go Google EEO, Equal Opportunity Statement.
Okay.
And you will see all of the different classes that are protected and all of those different classes make up diversity. And that's just the ones that are protected. There's ones that like, do you swear inside of your company? Well, if you swear inside of your company, you're probably not going to want somebody that doesn't swear because they're not going to feel comfortable in your team, right? Yeah. So that, I mean, that kind of stuff comes in too, but it's not just the color of your skin. That is a big hot topic issue right now, and that's something that a lot of businesses aren't prepared for, to be inclusive and diverse when it comes to understanding that your worldview and the way you view the world. For example, if you're white, you feel very safe around cops, right? You feel it's just they're okay, they're cops, right? If you're black, you always have like a slight edge. Like even if you like, I know for a fact, like no cop's gonna hurt me because I don't do anything illegal. But right, like I'm not worried. But at the same time, I'm a little worried. Every time I get pulled over, I'm like, okay, these are the things I need to do because I don't want them to be nervous because I'm outside of their societal worldview norm. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So when you think of diversity, it's not just it's things that are outside of your societal norm.
Okay.
Or your worldview norm. And it doesn't have to be a you thing. It could be a company thing too. You know, the company's norm, right? And if you're not prepared to deal with that, you're not prepared, right? So for example, I know a lot of people that hire mostly moms, right? Well, at that point, you've got to be prepared that if they're a mom, they may call in on Monday and say, hey, my kid is sick, I'm not helping. Or they may all of a sudden one day just like be like, okay, I got to go. Like my 2-year-old's having a tantrum, right? And you got to be prepared for that as a company because that's what that's the diversity you're dealing with, right? And that was something, I mean, I am not a mother. I had to learn because I hired a lot of mothers and I was like, what the hell? We had this meeting scheduled. What is going on? And I had to like check that my bias is, well, when I have a meeting, I am, distraction free because I don't have any children. So just things like that also make a big difference.
That is a really good conversation because, we've had team members on our team who have kids that are crawling around in the background or they're like breastfeeding on the meeting or something like that. And well, it doesn't bother me, like primarily on those meetings, it was mostly women on the call. So it's not a big deal, but I could see how that could be, it's distracting. Like it's harder if like the person who's actually you're in the meeting with isn't completely focused. So I guess we have so many questions that we have to get through, but I want to just ask you quickly, like, how do you navigate that if that's the culture? Like, is it that when you're on a meeting, your kids are not in the background, or you schedule times when you're not distracted, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So one thing, and actually I teach this in my Moving Forward Mastermind, which is I walk companies through how to create their 6-month plan. One of the main things is I make everybody personally check their bias and check it. And then I make them come up with values that you want out of yourself and the people that work for you. Yeah. The reason being is like, they don't, the thing is here, actually, I'll read you my values. I wrote them down not too long ago. Maybe I won't. Didn't write them down here. That's okay. But my values are commitment. My values are confidence, right? Neither of which have to do with being on time. Because guess what? I'm not on time. So I'm not going to hold you to that standard. I'm not going to follow, right? So I set up values. And if you are not hitting that marker, then we have a conversation.
Okay.
Right. Like everybody on my team knows if it's in Asana, if it's in the project management, and the day says today, it best be done today. Like not tomorrow, not Wednesday, not Friday, today. Right. So, if you're not hitting that benchmark, I don't care. I literally don't care when you do it. It just needs to be done today. So make sure it gets done. Right. And so that's how I set up my culture and how I set up my value system of how I hold people accountable to what they need. And I was speaking specifically for my marketing agency. My other businesses, not so much, but this specific to do with diversity, because each person has their own set of things. And that's partly what makes being on my team attractive. Right. I'm not saying I pay the most. Everyone's a 1099 contractor, right? So they're not getting benefits like you would at a full-time job, like 9 to 5 full-time, right? But at the same time, it's attractive because you can continue to live your life without having to own a business, but at the same time, you're working like you're an entrepreneur, and I hold you to that level.
Yep.
You see, you know what I mean? So, and that's what makes my team attractive. So you have to kind of figure out what makes your team attractive and why it's attractive and what you're going to do to make those shifts. If you don't think that what makes your team attractive is the best part, right? So
yeah, totally.
Keep them.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions. I'm going to whip through these really quickly. How can I support equality while still running a business from a place that's aligned with my brand?
Yeah. So again, go back to your biases, realize what you mean by even equality, right?
Yeah.
Equality and equity are two different things. So make sure you are doing some research into that, right? Because if equality is, the easiest way to explain to it is you're 3 feet and your brother's 6 foot and you each get 2 feet, right? A 2 feet thing to stand on, right? That's equality. You both got 2 feet. Well, your brother can definitely see because he's 6 foot and you're only 5 foot or 3 foot or whatever. You still can't see, right? So that's what equality is. Equity is different, right? And that goes back to, I mean, some of the stuff like I have mothers on my team, right? So if I said equality, you guys can work whenever. It doesn't matter. Ask me questions whenever, right? That's equity because that puts it on them, the onus on utilizing what is there to their advantage versus equality is I'm going to hand it to you. Hope it works. Hope it works. Right. So, first of all, take a look at those words because those are two very different words. And then the second thing, how do you align it with your brand? Well, at least for me, my brand, even my agency brand, Standing Your Bias, all of that is based off of what I think. Like it's based off of me, my face, how Jocelyn as a person, right? So it's a little bit different, you know, when you have a brand like I have the Entrepreneurship College, right? Which that's not my face. But then you have to go back and look at what your values are and your mission statement. If your mission statement is outdated, AKA, you know, you want to be spending some time, especially making sure you're loud about it and so you can educate other people. If you want to be spending some time on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, then you need to be loud and proud about it. And you need to update that mission statement, right? Because if you're a product-based business, ideally you have a mission statement. I want to provide the best earrings for mothers of all nations. I don't know, whatever your mission statement is, right? Right. And if you're really saying mothers of all, then guess what? You need to uphold that, right? If your thing is, hey, I want to make sure that my handmade jewelry is the best you find on the market. Well, maybe you need to add in something or take something away, right? So update. Once you kind of start doing some of this work and some of this education, you're going to find you're going to want to update stuff. That's what kind of stinks about it because it's really uncomfortable and you're like, man, I got to do that now too. So that's how you align it with your brand. Is it really is your response to social justice issues is how you morally feel and what you think is right. That is what it comes down to. No amount of education, no amount of me talking at you, no amount of somebody yelling at you or somebody pleading with you will change that. That is what it comes down to. And so what you feel comfortable with is what you need to be doing.
Okay, awesome. I think this was in the comments or a version of this. I paraphrased it. I saw at the beginning of the video, you're talking about how reverse racism doesn't exist. Can you educate us on that? I mean, maybe explain what reverse racism again?
Yeah, so again, I'm going back to my definition of racism. Racism is unchecked biases being able to make decisions, right? Yeah. So reverse racism is real. I'm going to let you know there's a lot of Black people that are extremely mad at white people, period, point blank. That's just what it is, right? Now, it's them not checking their bias because not all white people, again, absolutes, not all white people are bad. Not all cops are bad. Not all Black people commit crime. Not all, right? Like, that's where it comes into an issue. So it's unchecked bias. So, yeah, of course there's reverse racism. I mean, I get made fun of as a Black woman when I date a white man. Right? That's reverse racism. Like, they're trying to tell me that I should date a Black man, right? Or I should date a Black man, not a white one. Okay? So, yes, it is, but I challenge you to check, and this is where some of these definitions came in. I challenge you to check your white privilege and a little bit of that fragility because you are not persecuted in the same way, if that makes sense. You can I saw this really good graphic. You have white privilege in the sense that you can be taught about racism, but don't have to experience it on a day-to-day basis. Okay? So reverse racism is totally a thing, reverse racism or whatever. But I want you to stop and think about why you feel like it's racism. And second of all, love can totally be angry. So it may not even be racism. It just may be they're really, really mad because you did something stupid.
Yeah. But also, like, it seems weird to even call it reverse racism because racism is racism. It's like one race being, you know, having
it's a race thinking that they're better. Well, actually, that's more race-centric, centricism. When you think your race is better than every other race. So, like, for example, white supremacists think white people are the best race. So that's race-centric. But then all the actions that they do because of that is racist. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Right.
So let's see.
And everybody is race-centric. Like that's a bias, right? You automatically think, well, I'm black, so black people are cool as hell.
Yeah,
right?
well, it's black and white. So how do you handle that? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I said you're black.
No, it's totally fine.
So how do you handle that?
I do have biases. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. I took this years ago when I was getting my degree. We had to take as part of I've got an international business degree, so in law. So that was my nerdiness coming out. But part of doing international business, you had to understand, like, I did a lot of women's issues, not so much diversity and inclusion stuff, but I did do diversity and inclusion stuff. And in one of the courses, I think it was Stanford University, I can look it up. I will make sure it goes on the Stand in Your Bias website. Okay. I'm going to make sure. It is a quiz. It's the coolest thing, and I hope they still have it. It's literally online, and they pop up two pictures, and you have to pick one really quick. And I mean, it's really long. I will let you know. It's like 5 minutes of doing this, okay? And at the end, it tells you your response time, right? So your response time kind of tells you where your biases lie, right? I respond quicker to a white male than I respond to a black male. I respond quicker to a black female than I do to a white female, right? Because that's my bias. That's just how I sit, right? And that was years ago. I have no clue if that's still the same. I'm assuming it is, but again, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, so don't assume. Do the education, do the work. But I gotta find that. I just remembered about it now because I've had that question before and I had a different answer. But that is that is how I sit. Part of it is because I was raised by an all-white family, all white, like all of them. When I say all, I mean literally everybody. So I'm the anomaly. My mom decided to have me, and then proceeded to have more white children. So just keep that in mind, that you have to check that it all comes down to your emotional intelligence, so you can take the new information that's coming in and utilize it to the best that you possibly can utilize it, and realizing that you do have biases when you make decisions. That's what it comes down to. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
That I thought your whole description about that picking a person thing was interesting.
Yeah, I gotta find it. I almost want to Google it right now.
So I was going to ask you, like, how do people of mixed race really fall into this? So I don't know if you have any more to say about that, because I know I have so many.
So you cannot assume that any one person of color, any one black person speaks for us all. You cannot assume it. Cannot. I am speaking from the place of education, from a place of what I've done in my businesses, from a place of how I've taught before, things I've learned. That's what I'm speaking from. You may find another person that says the exact opposite from me, and that's how they view the world. And I come from a place of very much like positivity, love, and education. I will keep educating you until I'm like dead. I'm a teacher at heart, right? There are black people I know them, they're my friends. They're like, I cannot believe you are doing these talks. I cannot believe you're answering these questions. That is ridiculous. And I'm like, no, it's not, because I know that if I can educate you, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do, because I want you to be an ally. I want you to help make these changes. I looked it up. If you look up Stanford University implicit bias tests, you will find it. I think. I'm pretty sure. 92%.
Okay, cool.
I'll keep looking. It will be on the Stanford bias website.
What's your VA's name again? I'm sorry, Jocelyn.
Yeah, I'll keep. Ashton, she's probably around.
Yeah, Ashton, can you just drop that link? That would be awesome. So Marianne, I think she might have been the person who asked about this, or maybe it's a combination, but she has a comment here. People use the statement of reverse racism to justify racism, like all people are racist. So what's the big deal? ? But Jocelyn's clarifying the experience helps to combat the conversation in the future. Okay, so I think she's saying people are saying that, reverse racism is just racism said in a different way, but she liked what you said, I guess, is your clarification, so that when people say that, you have some talking points, I feel like. And someone else has said, I lost, and I'm taking these out of order just because it's relevant to what we were talking about. I lost a job due to reverse racism. The guy told me to go kill myself, and all got to keep his job along with his buddies. Along with his buddies that supported what he did to me. There was more to it, but it just got blown up around the whole building. And all I did was accepted everyone and did my job. It was horrible. Looking back, I can't tell if they were not happy folks or if they just smiled. They complained a lot. So I can relate a lot more now to Black people that experience racism due to that experience. Oh, that's it. Oh, I think what she was saying.
Right.
Yeah, I get that. Totally interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
And so you have to remember that if you are white, you can have sympathy, but you can't have empathy. Empathy comes from when you've actually been through something, the same something that somebody else is going through, aka death in the family, car crash, right? You've both been through it, so you can have empathy because you felt some of those feelings before in the exact same context. And that sounds to me, which I've had this happen to me. It sounds like sexism more than reverse racism, because if you can say that there was a dudes club or a buddies club, that sounds like not necessarily racism, but sexism is a real thing too.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally. Sorry, I'm trying to navigate all the questions coming in from other places and Instagram and
That's
stuff.
Okay. I can read them. They're here.
Okay, so
how should a very
sort of talked about this, but let's just cover it again. How should a very white passing Mexican identify? I don't know if okay, so I think what happened, we had a conversation in the chat while you were talking, Jocelyn. A couple of people said that they look white, but they're actually a version of Mexican or Latina or Puerto Rican or something like that, or from a Latin culture. So how do you have that conversation, or how do you even talk about it?
Yeah, so it's the same.
How are you supposed to identify? That's the thing, as a person of color or.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't identify you. You can only identify yourself. If you want to put on your job forms that you're Black, that's up to you. That's not up to me. But I don't necessarily putting people into boxes like that. I mean, yeah, you're a person of color because you're brown. That's that's just what it comes down to. But I think that really puts you in a different box. Ethnically and heritage wise, because I know for fact you grew up differently than the white kid that was living down the street from you, and you grew up differently than the Black kid that was living down the street from you, right? Case in point, here I'm in Wisconsin. If somebody calls me honey or sweetheart, they're really saying bitch. That's what they're saying. If I go down to the South, somebody's it's a term of endearment, and I'm like, wait, what? Are you trying to be nice to me or not? Okay, so no one can tell you what box you're fitting in, so I'm not even going to try. But secondly, I tell this over and over to people. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're coming from a place of love and education, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're white. It doesn't matter if you're Black. It doesn't matter, because you are there to improve the situation, not degrade the situation.
Yeah.
Right? If you start yelling at people, calling names, doing absolutes, just all in all being kind of dickish, you're going to degrade the situation. Okay. But if you're coming from a place of love and education, like, hey, I don't know how many comments I've responded back to that I'm like, hey, I read through it. Looks like you maybe have some biases of XYZ. Might want to look into it. And that's my response. I'm not going to respond to your hatefulness. I'm not going to respond to your anger. I'm not going to respond to you being a jerk. I'm not going to respond to your inflammatory comments or the things that aren't true, because you can Google. I know you can. We all can. So I'm going to respond with something that will help them be a better human if they're going to take that route. And so then I don't even get a response back usually, because they were there to create a fight. And I'm not there to fight. So
that happens. It
doesn't matter what color you are.
Oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what color you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what color you are. It does not matter. If you're ready to have these conversations, you should be coming from a place of love and education. Otherwise, this whole movement of allyship and anti-racism and social justice, you are not moving the movement forward by being a jerk.
Yeah.
You probably are enforcing a bias in somebody's mind by being a jerk.
Yeah.
Something
really interesting happened because I was offline for 5 days. I think I told you this when we were talking, or maybe something about this briefly, because we were just kind of messaging back and forth. And I came back after not being online for many days. And this all happened, like, I think I went offline the day that George Floyd got murdered, and then came back online that Monday when things were like really getting heated. And I had to jump right into another conversation. And someone on social media sent us a message and told me that I was ignorant for not posting anything. And I said, and I hadn't even had a chance to really catch up on the conversation yet. And I said, we don't comment on social and political issues. And there are a few other things said that I realize in passing I probably could have phrased a little bit better. But at the end of the day, they're just like they didn't even give me a chance to respond, but they're just like, you're a racist, like F you basically, and I'm blocking you, and peace out. Don't ever talk to me again. And I was like, I don't know who this person was. It was just someone following us on our Flourish and Thrive Instagram. And after that, I led a call with our coaching program that I feel like I completely fumbled through because I was just like so off guard. Like I didn't know what I should be talking about. And so one thing that I found, for anyone who's like concerned about how they should be showing up for their business, I think it's really important to just take a step back and not rush into anything, because I felt like for a minute I was getting pressured by some peers that I had to make a statement immediately without thinking about it or something like that. And that silence was violence.
Don't do that.
And that silence and violence slogan,
So
can you talk a little bit about this? Because I know a lot of us white people are like concerned about saying the wrong thing, because we really do have an inclusive community, or we are like inclusive.
Yes. So I'm a creepily following kind of person. Like I'll follow you for years just because I'm interested in what you're doing. So it actually has come in my favor when all of this started to heat up and blow up, because I follow people that are extremely vigilant and extremely they're organized, and they act accordingly to make sure that they're inclusive. Like they try hard. They try very hard to make sure not only them, their team, but also their audience is educated. And those people didn't have to say a damn thing.
Yeah.
Everyone knew. And so when they finally came out and they were like, have at the conversations, like your conversations are your conversations, have at them. Everyone kind of already knew. It wasn't even like all the comments were so positive and like, yeah, we already kind of knew this kind of comments, right? Where it becomes an issue is the people that aren't solid and haven't had stamina over the last year or two, that their audience knows it's a safe place. That's where that issue comes in, and people start calling. And I'm not calling you out. I'm not trying to call you out, but that's where it's not implicit. It's not just apparent, right? And that's where it's a problem. The flip side of that then is, and this is me putting on like my marketing strategy, business growth strategist hat, it becomes a PR nightmare. Okay? A nightmare that can follow you for a very long time.
Yeah.
That's happened to a lot of people. And it's a nightmare that's going to follow them for a very long time. And then it's a question of, are you doing it because you don't want the nightmare to continue? Or are you doing it because you actually educated yourself, checked your bias, threw the ego out the window, and were like, whoa, bro, I am wrong, like super wrong, right? Which one is it? And there's always going to be the question of which one is it, okay? So that is part of why it's important that you have the stamina and do the work. And that's why I am like harping on business, like have the stamina, have the plan, know what you're going to be doing, because it'll build your audience a different way, and it won't even be a question then. So there's that. Keeping in mind that obviously not everybody was super prepared, right? Not because they weren't.
Oh, I think you just froze, Jocelyn. You said not because they weren't. I think you were going to say not because they weren't inclusive, but
not because they're not inclusive, not because they're not friendly or open to diversity, right? But because it wasn't apparent. That's where the problem lies. And so there's a lot of brands like that, right? Where they're not bad brands, they're just maybe uneducated and not ready to make a statement, right? And that can become that could come from a whole. They grew really fast in the last year. They're just not prepared for half this stuff, right? If you ever hire a PR person, this is going to be stuff that they talk to you like, how would you deal with this situation? What are we going to plan for this situation, right? So that you have an action plan, right? Yeah. What I'm telling you is to pre-plan now, because it is going to happen again. As shitty as that sounds, it's going to happen again. People are going to, in the next week or two, it's all going to die down. It's going to become kind of like that gray area. It's going to be in the back of people's minds. And then something else is going to happen this fall or this winter or this summer even, and it's going to be back up and heated. And if you are not a business that has prepared, now at this point, you have gotten full notice. The notice has been given. So if you are prepared now, you can't have the excuse of, oh, I didn't know what to say, right? Which is a legitimate excuse. But now as a business owner, you can't have that. And so at that point, you're just purposely, silence is violence kind of thing. You're purposely not saying anything to keep the status quo. Well, the status quo is the norm in America, right? So you kind of have to think through it all the way in the circle. If you're not saying anything to keep the status quo, then the status quo stays the same. The status quo is what is white heteronormative culture in the U.S. stays the same and nothing changes.
Right.
See how it kind of circles?
Yeah. So thank you for that clarification, because I think that's really important. I mean, we made a statement the next day, and basically I just restated our core values, because we have always been a company that's founded on collaboration over competition. But I think I was really physically ill on last Tuesday, primarily because I was just so nervous about being attacked like some of the people that have been my mentors for years and saying the wrong thing, you know what I mean? Because it's just like and part of the reason why it's I'm probably going to say this wrong and I might be criticized for this, but part of the reason why I never really thought to say anything is because we have people from all kinds of backgrounds in our community, and it might be predominantly white, meaning that at least 50% of the people in our community are white. But that also might be a reflection of what's happening in the jewelry industry, because it does come from certain cultures that have passed this down from families, and it hasn't been maybe necessarily
super diverse.
I would just say that it's been a person of color industry, but maybe not a Black industry is maybe the best way to put it, because there are a lot of Latin jewelers or jewelers from various backgrounds where they have brown skin. I'm gonna with trying
Indian,
to think of
they're Indian.
But it is also
Native American.
What'd you say?
I said they're Indian, they're Native American, that's
all those things. Exactly. Thank you. And
you can say those words.
No, it's like when you're under pressure talking, you kind of think of what you're trying to say. But the other thing too is especially in New York City, where I usually live. I'm in Arizona right now, but I would say the majority of the people in the jewelry industry there are Jewish, a huge majority. That's their cultural background. So it is a diverse industry. but it comes from different places. And so like one of the things that I've been talking about with my friend Jennifer Gandia, who's been like a really outspoken voice in this community, I went to an event that was hosted by New York Jewelry Week, and I think it's here now or something. I can't remember the name of it, but I got to spoke. Predominantly, the exhibitors at that event were people of color, and it was funny because I walked in, and this was something that I did like literally at the last minute. It was actually the first date that I'd ever really had with my boyfriend. Now he was in town for the weekend. And I said, hey, do you mind if we like swing by this in Brooklyn? He's like, no. So we went. And as soon as I walked in, this one woman walks up to me, and I love her so much, Lorraine West. And she just comes and gives me a hug. I didn't even like see her coming. She just came and gave me a hug. And I was like, hi. And she's like, you know, this is what I forget is like, you know, I've been an outspoken voice in the jewelry industry for the last 8 years. And so is my co-founder, Robin. We're going to get to some questions she has in a minute. About, you know, really like one of the things that we hated so much about the jewelry industry when it started was that it was tight-lipped and people weren't willing to share information or support each other. And that was what we were breaking down. And so she had apparently taken one of our courses. She also listens to our podcast. And so it was kind of fun to see that. But also like to also see like how much talent there is out there if we're able to, I think the work that I have to do as a business owner is to maybe like open up a conversation so those people feel included. And I'm saying those people because one of the conversations that they were having at that event was that they don't feel like there's a place for, and I'm using the word them because this is what someone was saying. It doesn't feel like there's a place for Black jewelry artists to go. And that broke my heart because I'm like, we're right here. But like, I'm a white woman sitting here like, and my co-founder is white too. She's Jewish and white. And Robin, I hope you don't mind if I mention your culture, but you know, we're like two white people running this company or the face of the company. And I would never want people to not feel like they weren't included. And another thing too, is I had a designer who just graduated from our coaching program. She gave some feedback in our exit interview about certain things that we could do to be more inclusive. And I want to bring this up because I think it's really important to have in this conversation for our community. And I said, sure, let's get on the phone because something happened. You know, I had been working with my team for months and they know this, to get all of the Instagram handles, in particular of the students who have taken our programs, but really focused on the people who are in our coaching program because I like to highlight them, people who are like really stepping up and doing the work and all that stuff. And so it's hard to keep track when you have 100 people that are rotating in and out of a program or like 80 to 100 people at any given time.
That's a lot,
To keep like a track of all the current Instagram handles. So what we're doing is streamlining our systems on the back end so that we actually have a good thing for that. But this came up because she's like, I noticed that the day that all this went out, you wanted to feature me, then you had never followed me before. And today's the day you're following. And it's also the day that I'm graduating from your program. And this is the first time you followed me. And then we posted in our social, I posted the post and I had like a variety of hashtags. It wasn't only like the Black Melanie voice-ish amplifies, whatever hashtags, all the hashtags that people are using. I had used a variety in the post. And then our social media person, not knowing what to do, just literally posted only the hashtags that are trending right now for the Black community. And she was really offended by that. Like seriously offended. And I was like, and I'm like, look, girl, I'm so glad that I'm not going to say her name because I didn't feel comfortable doing that. She didn't give me permission to share this conversation. But I said to her, I'm like, you know, I really want to thank you for bringing this to my awareness. I didn't even realize that had happened. But also, you know, like a lot of people don't know what to do. And I want to support you. And we've been trying to feature our SOS. And I gave her the backstory. I'm like, we've been trying to feature our SOS designers all week. And quite frankly, I didn't know that this was the day that you were graduating, but we did get on a call because you wanted to talk about some ways that we could be more inclusive and create a conversation around diversity for people of color in our programs. And so that's like actually why we're here. I didn't realize it was about all these other things. And so that was a good learning lesson for me because and this goes to back to like what you're saying, don't say down if you're do, you're down if you're don't. Like I felt like I was doing something to support a community member, but she ended up being offended. And so one thing that I always welcome members of our community is to like have a civil conversation about this, because one of the things that I really appreciated about it is that she didn't come from a place of anger. It was more just like, she came from a place of like, you did this. Now, like, here's how it made me feel. And like, here's the reasons why. And maybe you should rethink the way you're doing it next time if you're featuring another designer like that. So, because I think like the one thing that what was it? What else did she say? There was something else and I forgot, but I think that was like the main point. So with that being said, you know, I know a lot of people want to be supporting the social causes that are going on right now. And everyone wants to be able to donate to charities and stuff like that. And I'm going to hand this over to you in a minute. And I sat really for a long time with this, because a lot of my peers and might get a little emotional because that's what happens when I'm leveling up. A lot of my peers are into a lot of these big organizations. And sometimes I have an ethical problem with that, because I know sometimes these big inflated charities, a lot of times the money doesn't really go to the people who need it the most. It goes to fuel the organization. And that's a personal decision of mine. Like my brother has a heart. I use this as an example. And I talk to my brother about this every year. He has a heart condition and he has to get his heart checked a lot because he had a bicuspid valve and it had to be replaced and all this stuff. And every year his kids do a run for the American Heart Association. And I'm always like, why can't you find a more local charity that actually would serve you or people underprivileged people maybe who are in need, who have heart conditions, like you have the means, you can afford it, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing well, where the money goes directly to that organization. And so this kind of encapsulates into a bigger conversation around like, what kind of things should we be posting on the hashtags if we want to support the cause, first and foremost? How should it be mixed? Secondly, like how can you align with like what you socially value, what you value from a charity standpoint to be able to support this as an entrepreneur? And I can even throw in the word like white entrepreneur in there, because like, you know, like this from a foundational aspect, like I don't like donating money to huge organizations because I don't feel like the money actually gets to the people who need it. So let's go from there.
Yeah, that's why I say, you know, create a grant or giveaway specifically for your Black audience.
I also going to talk about that. I'll say after.
One thing I do for my team specifically, and this is just because I expect my team to be the best at all times. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm willing to give my team the tools to be said best. Meaning, like every time I see a business course, business bundle, whatever, I'm buying it. I'm buying it. Even if there's only one course in there that I can tell one person to take, I'm buying it. And now that my team is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, we're creating a program where I bonus you for taking a course. Yeah. If you can tell me you took the whole course and you learned, I'll bonus you. Okay. So that is one way. I talk to a lot of online-based stuff, so more service-based than product-based. I do have product-based clients, but I talk a lot more service-based. And so I'm like, hey, if you have a course, if you have a training, if you, whatever, give it away. Just because it's not going to cost you anything to give it away, right? Now, on you guys, you're more of a product-based, right? So you have, you know, you sell, you have your margin, right? You have all of that to deal with, right? Giving to a charity or giving to an organization is a lot better. And what I would say is go, first of all, to your local state. Like, for example, I know I have a friend right now in Arkansas, and she is starting a legitimate investment company for Black only. So you can invest into the investment company, or you can say, hey, I'm donating 10% of, you know, this month's sales to you guys. Go give it as a grant or as an angel investor, whatever, to a Black-owned company. Okay, I do the same exact thing. I do the same. I'm not only in the state of Arkansas; I'm across, but I do the same thing because I want to be sure that my money and my expertise, my time, is going to a business that can actually utilize it. And I come off of business because I truly think entrepreneurs are the changers of the world. right? If every single entrepreneur that owned a jewelry store all posted the same thing at the same, we'd be trending, period. Period. We'd be trending. That's just what it is. That's what it comes down to, right? And trending and what is hot makes changes, right? We see all these protests. I don't know if you looked at the news lately, but there's a crap ton of changes coming down the funnel now, right? So what is hot and what a lot of people see makes changes. So I would say 1, look locally, or 2, look to somebody that you know, that you love and trust, because you will find somebody. And or post on your Facebook, post in business groups. You're gonna find places where you can give grants, things like that, give money to grants, things like that. I'm not a big charity organization. One organization, oh, she's gonna love me for shouting her out. Actually, and it's not here in the United States, but she works with orphaned African kids. And she like literally has an orphanage and a education and all of that, pads for menstrual cycles, like all of this, because period poverty is a huge thing. Fun fact, if you're not in a first world country, that's a problem. Her name, her organization is called Evie Grace, EVIE Grace.com, or EVGraceFoundation.com. And that's something that you could help build the Black community, because you're building Black kids that literally have nowhere else to go. Yeah. So look for those smaller ones where you can literally see the change happening, right? That make a big difference. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's great.
If you need help, that is actually something, Ashton, I'm so sorry. You're going to be writing all kinds of stuff down. That is something I can actually add to the Stand in Your Bias website. Because like I said, we have the investment, but if you're not looking to help business owners, like, Black business owners grow, and you're looking to do more of a humanitarian something, I can put together, I got a full list. I can put together the list of places where I have given, or I have like pro bono helped with stuff that I think are absolutely out of this world awesome.
Yeah. So I love that. And also, I'm not going to use your time here to do it, but I decided part of the struggle I was having is like, do I donate to a big fat organization where it's not going to really help the people that need it? Or do I do something that's really aligned with what we stand for to help businesses grow? And so we have committed $42,000 in mentorship and grant funding for 6 BIPOC businesses. I'm going to be sharing more, and it's going to be like across the board, but really like my mission with this is to really help people who cannot afford mentorship or to get into a program like this, because that is where it happens. And it's like, if you're just not you don't want to spend the money, fine. But like, and I would encourage everyone to apply, but it's really for people who cannot afford it. Like, this is where I really want to help.
Yeah. Well, and as a business owner, you have to realize everything's on a time-money continuum, right? Either you have a lot of time, or you have a lot of money, or you're somewhere in between, right? And so you have to realize that. And so if you have a lot of time, give your time, give your expertise. Yeah. If you have a lot more money, give your money, right? It just depends on where you're at. Exactly. I give a lot of time. I'm like the go-to question person, so that works, and that's fine. But I also want to start giving my money more often to charities that I don't necessarily work with, and now to business owners to help them up-level their business. So it really is up to you on how you want to roll with things.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Let's go back to the question.
Yeah, I know. We got a little bit on a tangent. Do you have a little bit more time to go through the rest of these?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Let's get through the questions here.
One of these, it's just here. It's too long to copy.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to read them, and I'll answer them as I read them.
Cool.
Okay.
Perfect.
With the Candace Owens conversation, I don't know her at all. When you spoke about passing, if that's her norm because of the way she was raised, how does that factor in if that is her reality? So it's a mix. It's a mix for, at least in Candace Owens' case, it's a mix. Reason being is she got a huge settlement for being subject to some racist stuff that went down. But now what pays her bills is talking differently. So and that's where the norm comes in, right? It's she's making money off of a norm that she feels is the most profitable. Okay, so it might be partially the way she was raised. It might be partially because of something that happened to her, but it is her reality, and it's what she believes. At least I think that's what she believes now. And we're in America, that she's totally within her right to believe that. But you, as someone that's kind of watching all of this come out, has to realize that some people overcompensate, right? On both ends of the spectrum, right? They're overcompensating on the Black Lives Matter side, and they're like way, way over, like can't hear any other opinions. And some people are so far on the other side that all lives matter and it can't hear any other opinions, right? And you're going to be good at educating. You need to be somewhere in the middle and realize that some parts of both are correct. It's just where it comes down. So it could be a reality.
I was gonna say, I think that comes into like, really educate, like you keep saying, educate yourself and consume, have a conversation. And I think I've really been, it's uncomfortable for me because I definitely am like more liberal leaning, but I'm trying to watch like all types of resources from all types of things so I can get a clearer understanding of like the different viewpoints, that are out there, just so I can talk, about it in a way that like comes off okay. Okay, awesome. Next question.
Yep. When I'm speaking with my friends who just want equality over everything, for instance, I posted the original name of this conversation in the conversation about diversity and inclusion. I got a message from a friend and she said that the topic was offensive. When what she really wants is equality or an equal opportunity based on the skill set. How does equality fit into this conversation? Again, I'm going to go back to the equality versus equity situation. I am a firm believer that equity is more important than equality, right? If you're really going to enact change, that's how it is. Right now, as a capitalistic society, we're very based in equality. And that's what people tend to think, but it's really not. We're looking for equity here, right? If you need an extra leg, you need an extra leg. That has nothing to do with me, right? So keep that in mind. But when somebody, this is how I think of it, and maybe this is my political, social, and economic bias coming in, but when somebody gets offended over something, I tend to think you hit a spot that either hit their ego or shattered, like put a little pinprick in their worldview, and they didn't enjoy that, right? Because if you're offended by something, that literally means something on the inside is rubbing, and there's a dissonance there. So when somebody gets offended, I tend to ask the question, like, what part irritated you? What part frustrated you? What part, right? Because it's usually not the whole thing. It's usually like a word or the way you said it, right? And I have to talk to myself a lot, like internally, like you're not offended about that. You're mad because, this situation happened in the past and it's triggering in a response when it's really not the same thing. Okay. So keep that in mind when somebody's offended. It's not necessarily a you thing. It's probably more along the lines of, a bias they have somewhere on the inside that they're not quite ready for to be shattered. I feel this is an issue of the heart and the spirit, or is this a political issue? It's a human issue, period. So, because all of us have different ways of looking at things, it's a human issue. It is an issue in the heart and the spirit because you have to be aligned with the direction you go, right? Because you can't say all lives matter, but really truly think that there needs to be change when it comes to Black Americans and people of color and all of that, right? Like then you're not aligned, and at that point it's a spirit issue because you're going to get drained way quicker. Okay, so it is, but it isn't. I've seen a lot of really good arguments, especially if a lot of the communities Jewish and or Christian. I've seen a lot of really good arguments straight out of the Bible. So I mean, you can go and Google those yourself, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's a political issue. Part of why I say that is a lot of Black people are a lot more conservative than what you think they are, even more conservative than maybe the way they vote. So just keep that in mind, that there can be a dissonance there between the politic part of it. So I don't put those two together, if that makes sense. They're not buddies. They're not cousins. They're like distant relatives. Like, what happens to one affects the other, but at the same time, it's not the same thing. Okay. I have been talking with a couple of my friends who have mixed families and want to talk with more of my acquaintance friends about it, but not sure the best way to approach it. The best way to approach it is find a better way to educate yourself. That's what I'm going to tell you. If there's nothing more annoying than getting a "what do you think I should do here? What do you think?" question, right? If you can't find a book or a podcast or a blog or something to educate yourself on it before you bring up the topic, you're doing it wrong. You can go find something that'll help you educate yourself before you go to have that conversation. Now, if you have something very specific to ask them, like, hey, I was reading blah, 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 blog, and it said in there, blah, 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 I want to know, is that a norm for, mixed families, or is that something, like, is it okay if I ask you this? Is this a norm, or is this something that is specific to that person's experience? That's something different. At that point, it shows you've already done your research and you're asking specifically about them. You're not asking them to train you on something that you should have been able to Google. Okay, so that's my approach to talking to friends and family. Realize people are really tired right now, especially if they have mixed families, because they're worrying about what their kids are going to experience. Where can I donate my money and time? There's so much out there. I want to make sure to contribute. Okay. Ashton, write this down if you're still on. I will make sure to put a list on the standinyourbias.com website. So it's not going to be there, but if you give me your email, I will be sure to let you know when it comes up. We're hoping to have everything, like all the resources, up by the end of the week, but it's a lot. There's a lot.
Can you share it with me when you have it? Just like send me the link.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, totally. You'll be on the list. Don't you worry. Okay. There are stores and designers who do not know what to post. Any suggestions on the post, focus, or topic? Okay, so that was one of my action steps, to share your story. There's mixed responses there, but here's what it is. If you're white and have seen some racist shit go down, or you have been part of some racist stuff, you can speak about it on a first-person basis, and you can use it to educate. So that is what I recommend, because again, people respond to a story better than they respond to like a blacked out graphic for Black Lives Matter, right? People become numb. So if you have a story like that, I would recommend that you share it, and share it in a way where it shows that you are committed to growth and change, and you have the stamina, and you're doing the work, and you're educating yourself, especially if you're white, right? Because it's not about you. It's about bringing awareness to a problem that you see. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So that's what I would recommend posting. But then as you continue going along in your educational journey, you'll find things that completely shift your worldview. That's something that you should post. If it shifted how you thought about the world, or how you were looking at this problem, or how you were going to address this problem, that's something you should post. Like, hey, I was reading such and such book, or I just learned about no absolutes, right? This is why it changed my worldview. That's something huge. That's something huge that you could talk about, okay? So that's the kind of topics. Not necessarily I stand with Black people, right? Because it's very, at least to me, when I see those posts, I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's very hot topic. That's very like what everyone else is posting. And as a business, you want to stand out, and I know you do. So find a way to stand out, and the best way to do that is to tell a story no one else can tell. Okay, I have a friend who owns a few businesses, and it turns out the head of one of her companies was being racist. She was with the company a long time, and my friend fired her when she learned of the issue. How can you assure the employees that change will happen? Well, first of all, firing the person shows a huge amount of like onus, and like, yeah, we're not taking this, not at all. So keep that in mind. So there's that. And then the other thing is start with an education plan, right? Nobody likes mandatory education, but it does help. So start with some, mandatory education, obviously paid, even if it's just like a talk like one of these, or a place where people can ask their questions, something like that, where it's an open space and it's not a hostile environment, will make a really big difference. The other thing is talk with the people that she was racist to, and make sure that they feel like they're in a safe space. They can come to you as the business owner. There is no other higher regard, right? They can come to you and have those conversations, and they feel safe doing so, like you're going to enact change, not just that you're going to be like, cool, and move on with your day. You're going to listen and engage and react accordingly and affect those changes that you need to see. So that's what I would recommend for those employees. It's a rough situation, but it is what it is. How do you show your commitment, growth, and change and stamina at the same time transitioning back into posting your own content? That's going to come into how you're educating yourself and how you want to show up. That is a hard question to ask, and it's a hard question to answer, because it's extremely personal to each brand. That's part of the reason why I have the mastermind I have, because it's hard. Like, if I don't know what your brand is and like where you stand and the work you've already done, I can't really tell you what to post. But what I would say is, I mean, at least for my businesses, and this is something that I didn't do because, and I can own this, I'm Black. Everybody knows I'm Black. My face is on like everything. So you can't miss the Jocelyn, okay? And I wasn't posting a lot about where we stand culturally as a business and where we stand societally as what we're changing in society. So that is something that I'm actually adding into my content, and I'm posting once a week about it. So like what we are doing as a company, what we're educating ourselves on, what we're changing, the whole nine, that's what I'm doing. So, but that's not something that necessarily all brands can do, because I work as a business strategist, and other companies, I can do that because I'm showing support for the people that I'm literally working with. Mm-hmm. But as a jewelry maker, that's going to be a little different, and you're going to have to find your best way possible forward.
Awesome.
Okay. This is an actual comment. Okay, so 2 employees are white and they usually model for me. I don't have a big budget for it, but I decided to hire Black models and photographers to add diversity to my brand since I'm unable to hire more team members. Okay, I can guarantee you there's Black women, Black girls that really want to model and want some modeling pictures. So you can always find somebody to model. Always can find somebody to model for you. So there's that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have hired a Black photographer if you're good. If your other photographer was white and they were really good, who cares? But if you're showing diversity in your product photos, you'll do better selling to diverse clientele. That's actually something I do tell with my agency clients that have product-based businesses that do product photos like on the person, like here's the earring or here's the ring, right? To make sure that they are interchanging Black and ethnic and white and like all of the people. But the other thing you can do to kind of sidetrack that is just take white background product photos. You don't have a big budget.
They don't perform as well on social media though. The white background photos do really well for like website, but they don't perform as well on social media. Like model shots do much better.
Yeah, you need people. Yeah, but if you don't have the budget, the other thing is I would go into your local like town or city's Facebook group, because they've got one, and say, hey, I'm looking for people that are interested in modeling, and I guarantee you get 100 comments, guaranteed.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to kind of literally sift through what the look you're looking for, and or just go through the list and take pictures of everybody over time. So
yeah. Okay, awesome.
I often use beads from Kenya and Ghana in my jewelry design. I had once been considering naming a collection tribal style. I saw a comment someplace that Black people would consider that offensive. What do you think about that? Another person who does Native American jewelry said they call it heritage. Okay, so I work with a huge Native American jewelry company, okay? And there are words that we legitimately do not use. Because either they're protected or they just don't work. So tribal, this is the thing. To me, tribal doesn't necessarily mean African, because there's plenty of other tribes around the whole entire globe that are not African. So I would say that's probably not the best name for it. Heritage, same thing. I mean, you could say heritage and have it be a white person something. So that wouldn't necessarily, I would find something like, I mean, why don't you just name it the Kenyan collection or something like that? Like if that's, you know, what you're actually doing, or something along those lines. And I'm also talking from an SEO standpoint. Tribal and heritage probably won't do as well as if you actually named something else. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't find that offensive. Again, remember, offense comes from when there's a dissonance inside of you. but I wouldn't find that that's a great name for it, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you to name it. I'd have to do a lot of thought on that. You put my little thought brain on that, but
I think we're good.
I wouldn't.
The question was really more just like, is that offensive?
I don't find it offensive, but I also don't find it culturally accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we as small businesses need a public action plan? One of the best things, and this is one thing that I'm doing with all of my mastermind students, is I'm helping them create an ethics statement that literally goes on your website, just like a privacy statement and terms of service and or terms and conditions, whatever, refund policy, all of it, right? It goes right on their website. So I would recommend, I don't even have one, again, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, and anybody can be racist, and I just didn't even think about it. But now that I'm actually looking into it, I think it's a great idea. And it really creates this is where we stand. You're not changing our mind, right? We stand with law, and we're standing on the values of law, right? So I would personally do that. I would put it out on my website, and I would use that as part of one of my emails to showcase, like, hey, we are making changes, and we're making changes specifically like this. I would personally do it. Actually, personally, I am doing it, but would you please clarify the difference between appropriation and appreciation relating to products, for example, using styles, motifs, or images from a specific culture to profit? So appropriation is, let me look up the actual definition, because I have my own internal definition for all kinds of stuff, but like dictionary definitions tend to differ. So, okay, appropriation is the action of taking something for one's own use, typically without the owner's permission. So, excuse me, a good option or a good example for that is what I think of appropriation is like white people making dream catchers. I know I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in the middle of like Native American tribe country. So like all of our cities are named like Native American names. So that's what I think of when I think of appropriation. So there's a weird, personally, I don't care. If you can make it pretty, go for it. But if you do have products like that don't match who you are ethnically or racially or whatever, what I would recommend to keep people at bay from calling you racist or like you're profiting off of somebody else's culture, is say, 25% or all profits of this specific type of jewelry or this specific piece go to name blank, whatever you're going to give your money to or your time to, whatever, right? So it makes it clear, like, even though you've made this beautiful piece of jewelry that was using the style of blah, you're still giving back. And that's something that I actually didn't point out. So when it comes to education, please be sure you're educating yourself via Black people or people of color, not white people that wrote books on Black people. Big difference. Big difference. For example, one of the biggest books right now is called White Fragility, written by a white person. She ain't giving any of that money back to the Black community. And it's sold out. Like, you cannot get it on Amazon right now. So think of that, if it was flipped or reversed, if you had created a piece of jewelry and somebody copied it and didn't give you the credit you deserve, you'd be kind of mad, right? You'd be calling some IPs type stuff, so intellectual property type stuff. So keep that in mind. Appreciation, that's pretty. That's what I think of. I don't know. Appropriation, when you start to make money off of somebody else's culture, is where it becomes an issue, and you probably will get called out for it. What is stereotypical Black? So stereotypes are types that jokes are made about, right? Like, Black people love watermelon. Black people like fried chicken, which I like to say I like both of them. Black people drink orange drink, right? Those are kind of stereotypes that come from not even something necessarily negative, but create a image or a norm that a Black person should fit into. For example, Black people speak Ebonics. I'd like to point out, I did not speak Ebonics this whole talk, okay? Again, absolutes. Can I speak Ebonics? Yes. Can I bring some Black love to you in a way that you've never seen before? Probably. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the norm, right? So it's when you take something like that and make it the norm. Stereotypical black fathers leave their children. Black mothers are single mothers. Those are all stereotypes that a lot of Black people have to deal with. And even if they are technically proving the stereotype right, doesn't mean it's necessarily correct. So that's what I mean by stereotypical Black. I'm pretty sure I said that earlier, but I think you're asking about that. When discussing racism with Black friends / acquaintances, what place does experience with anti-Semitism be discussed? I'm not sure how to phrase this question. So anti-Semitism is people that are against the Jewish culture and Jewish nation, I believe, if I'm right. So you probably have a lot of the same experiences. I honestly have never dealt with that, so I can't even help you there. I was raised super conservative Christian, so I have sympathy, but no empathy. So when it comes to that, again, it comes down to your story. People respond to your story. If you can say, one of the best things, because think of it this way, if you're having a mental health crisis, one of the best things I've ever had somebody say, like literally hands down best thing, telling a super rough story of some traumatic stuff that happened to me. And instead of being like, oh, that sucks, or something along those lines, or like, oh, I'm sorry, it was, the response was, how do you feel after telling me that story? And it really threw me for a loop, because not a lot of people talk like that. And it was taking that story and turning it back to, what is that feeling? How can I help you process that? Versus, here, let me make it about me. Or let me just gloss over the fact that you probably told me something kind of rough to tell me, and be like, oh yeah, that sucks, right? So I kind of challenge people now to think about, if somebody tells you something like their story of racism, to instead of be like, oh, I'm so sorry, or oh, that stinks, ask a probing question to help you and them process the trauma better. So there's that. But also when it comes to conversations, especially if it's one-on-one, you can have that one-on-one conversation and be like, oh, that happened kind of to me, but it came about because of my religion, because of the culture I'm part of. You can have some of those conversations, but it's not the same, right? It's just not the same. So keep that in mind. But that's one thing that I thought was absolutely amazing. And it completely changed my worldview on how to have rough conversations, especially when somebody is talking about trauma that they've experienced. Okay. I've already worked with a female Black photographer. We've become friends, and I wanted to talk to her about it. I'm terrified of coming off the wrong way or being offensive. What advice do you have to share my heartfelt love and appreciation to them without somehow seeing opportunistic? Okay. I've had people that are opportunistic as shit happen to me in the last few weeks, and some that are really coming from a place of love, and like I've missed the mark. So opportunistic examples. Friends that I thought were friends and came to me and were like, how do I explain this to my audience? And I send them the information, and the next day an email, a social media post comes out with my words, word for word, no credit given. Okay, that's opportunistic. Opportunistic is naming me in an email, because at this point, I mean, this is very unhumble to say, but at this point I'm getting interviewed by some big people, like people with big audiences, articles with big audiences, right? I'm getting interviewed, and now it's cool to be my friend and use my name, okay? And use my name to kind of booster them because of, help them make money, okay? So that's another way. So think about that, is if you're turning it around to make money, put a little hold on that, or find a way where you can mutually partner and create something cool. But if the thing is if you were hiring a white photographer, would you question it right now? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You'd go and hire the person. It'd be whatever, right? So if you were already planning on hiring this person, if you have a photo shoot in mind,
I think she works with her already. Just to be clear that we're answering but she wants to have a conversation with her, but she's terrified because she doesn't want to seem insensitive or like say the wrong thing or whatever. So how does she broach the conversation?
Let me reread this.
So I've already worked with a female Black photographer. We've become friends, and I wanted to talk to her about it, but I'm terrified of coming off the wrong way or being offensive. How do I have this conversation? There was also something about opportunistic somewhere else.
Yeah. What advice do you have to share my heartfelt love and appreciation?
How to do that without seeming opportunistic, I think is what you said.
Send them an email or a message and be like, girl, I really super appreciate you. The photos you took for me are freaking amazing. That's how you appreciate them as a person.
Yeah.
Their work.
I think the other thing, sorry.
You don't have to, the thing is right now, you don't have to publicly shout out someone just because you know a Black person. Like that's what I was referring to earlier. We're like, just because it's cool to say my name right now doesn't mean it's cool. Okay. So, you can show your heartfelt appreciation. Some of the best stuff I've gotten was like a DM on Instagram. If anyone follows me on Instagram knows I don't post anything on Instagram. Like my feed is empty. My stories happen every now and then, but my feed is empty. And so like messages of like, hey, I watched it. You changed my life. It was amazing. That's all they need to do. They didn't have to make a big giant post about, I did this training with Jocelyn. Like, no, that's okay. I felt loved and appreciated because they did it out of literally the thankfulness in their heart, not because they wanted to also pair it with their ego or their business building. So keep that in mind. It's not just because it's cool to shout them out right now doesn't necessarily mean you need to. But a cool thing you could say is like, hey, I really love and appreciate you. I've been realizing I haven't been doing the best showcasing your work, and I'd love to start putting your Instagram handle on everything. Is that okay? Because I want to be sure you're getting the appreciation you deserve for this great stuff that you did for me. That's a good way to do it, right? Because you should do that across the board, though. Like it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter if they're white or Black. You should be doing that for your photographer. Yeah, that's my personal stance. But
exactly.
So
for that's great clarification.
Yeah, appropriate to ask this to your audience. Huh?
I don't know if that came up in the feed, but I don't know what it really means. But it might have been.
I don't get it.
Okay.
Thought-provoking or rhetorical?
Let me read this. I really like how you say, do you come from a place of love and education or anger or hurt? Is it appropriate to ask your audience if it's just a thought-provoking conversation or a rhetorical question? I think that's what she's trying to ask. She was giving you, because I'm seeing that there was two different things.
I'm so lost. You totally lost me on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a super clear question that she's asking, but I think it was just to basically say that she likes how you were saying that it's different. It's different if you're coming from a place of love and appreciation or versus anger and hurt. I don't really know.
Love can be angry. Think of the parent that just saved their kid from walking across the road. They're going to be angry at their kid. It's because they love them so much, right? Yeah. So love can be angry, but where it becomes an issue is if you're turning the anger into hatred and just being mean and rude. Right. You're not educated at that point. And you need, the thing is everyone needs to start educating themselves and everybody around them as they see wrong stuff happening. And if you do it from a place of love, then if that person is in a space to continue their journey and really become an ally, they will. But if that person isn't in that space, that's not a person that we're trying to reach necessarily right now, right? Because they don't get it yet. And no amount of love and education will have them get it. Okay, she says, sorry, having phone issues.
No worries, girl. Well, Jocelyn, I think we're done with the questions. I want to thank you so much for being here. And we didn't even know each other until I think last Wednesday. So I want to thank you for agreeing to come and do this training for our audience. Where can everyone find you? Which I think is really important. And also, I'm going to probably be reproducing parts of this for the podcast. So we'll, and some social snippets. So if you could tell us where everyone can find you, and then also we'll follow up privately and we can get all the information. And once it's ready, we can send it to the audience.
Yep. So everyone can find me at standinyourbias.com. All of those resources, the ones that I even came up with on this talk, will be there probably by the end of the week, if not middle of next week. And then if you want to connect with me personally, you're more than welcome to add me on Facebook. I'm pretty chill. And then I'm at Jocelyn J. Kopac for everything. Facebook, Instagram, all of it. If you find me on Twitter and follow me on Twitter, thank you so much. You will never hear from me.
Me too.
I have Twitter. It's there. I just don't use it.
I'm laughing so hard. I said, I typed in the comments here, a true visionary. You're like, I'm sorry. Like you were saying sorry to your assistant for like throwing all these things out there in the middle of the live. I'm like,
I know she's probably like, they're like, this is getting worse every time she does it. Like she keeps adding things to the list. But I find things that, you know, are helpful as I talk with them. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, if that was written down there somewhere for somebody to follow, it'd be a lot easier for them to use that as a change mechanism.
Yeah.
So you're always going to find me coming up with new things. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to keep putting them underneath this video. I'll keep an eye on it for the next few days, and or tag me so that I can really keep an eye on it, because then I'll definitely see it. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're a business that's ready to make some changes, I'm excited.
I would love for our community, if there was something that really hit home for you that resonated that you can paraphrase and like credit Jocelyn for, please share that on social or where, or in your groups or wherever you have conversations, because I think that this is a great place to kind of open up a conversation for the broader Flourish and Thrive community, Jocelyn's broader community, your community of customers that you have in your audience and all those things. So once again, thanks again, Jocelyn, and bye everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.